So, in this episode, we will reflect on how advertising works, and we will address questions such as why do we feel compelled to buy something that is on sale, what makes us buy non-essential products, and why is advertising just so effective? How does it work? So, it's commonplace to say that we function the way computers do. However, it is actually the other way around, because we were the ones who built and designed computers. And just like with every other thing we've ever designed, we were inspired by our perceptions of the world around us. Take airplanes for an example. Airplanes took the aerodynamics of bird flight as an inspiration, and this can be visually confirmed because planes do look like a type of robotic bird, if you wish. So most likely, if we didn't have the capacity to look up and admire the world around us, we probably would never have invented planes. And just like planes were designed in the image of birds, computers were created in our own image. We inspired ourselves in ourselves to create computers. And usually we often forget we were actually the ones who invented computers. Probably because, unlike planes, which resemble birds, computers don't really share any visual similarities with humans, but they do share similarities in terms of thinking. Just like computers are basically information processors, so are we. Simply put, we take in raw information, we condense this information so we can later store it in our memory storage. And I usually say that my memory storage has already reached its full capacity a long time ago, and it's just full of numerous music lyrics which are completely irrelevant and have absolutely no purpose whatsoever in my life. But yeah, moving on. Whilst the brain uses chemicals to transmit information, the computer uses electricity. And the computers are actually faster at transmitting information than we are, even though we're actually pretty quick ourselves. And I guess this is actually why we usually say that we're the ones who are similar to computers, because it's actually strange to think that we can create a more sophisticated, more advanced technology than the one we ourselves possess. Another important distinction is that computers see all information in the exact same way. However, for us humans, some memories are more important than others. For instance, if I were to ask you about your graduation ceremony or your wedding day, I'm sure you'd be able to remember it in way more detail than if I were to ask you to describe what you had for lunch last Monday. And unlike computers, we also make connections between different memories because the brain is hardwired to relate certain bits of information together. Have you ever wondered why it feels good to be tucked up in bed or in a blanket or something like that? Well, basically, we associate physical warmth with psychological warmth. So experiences of warmth activate memories of when we were younger and comforted by our parents, and this meant that we were safe and nourished, for instance. So we associate feelings of warmth with safety and comfort. In a way, the study of advertising is also the study of the human brain because it plays a lot on these associations between memories, as I've just described. And I will let you know in advance that I'm not a massive fan of advertising. Also, I constantly have the feeling that advertising just does not do what it promises to do, which is, making people more attracted to buy a certain product. Because why would I want to buy a product which was advertised in the middle of a music video I was listening to on YouTube? How does that work? Because, if anything, I will come to hate the product straight away because it just interrupted my music. So why does advertising make so much money? Why are we constantly being bombarded with adverts every single day of our lives. Why do companies invest so much money on this? Well, advertising works because it plays a lot on our survival principles and the way that we were brought up by evolution. Have you ever wondered why you always feel so compelled to buy stuff that is on sale? Well, basically, promotions put limits on the availability of a certain product, and this plays on the principle of scarcity. We perceive items that are on sale as being limited and therefore scarce. And we are more likely to make an impulsive buy because we feel that we won't have the chance to get that item again for that price, so we feel the need to buy it at that moment in time and to get it just as fast as we can. And this is because evolution taught us to value goods that are scarce. It's almost automatic for us to assume that what is valuable is sometimes scarce because our past experiences tell us that valuable things are made of rare materials such as gold and diamonds, but the reverse is not necessarily true. What is scarce is not necessarily valuable. And this is certainly true for most of the items you get on sales. Yes, they're scarce, but they're not valuable, and you will most likely regret buying them after a while. I feel like the stores here in England are constantly on sales. In Portugal, for instance, we only have sales during Christmas time and summertime, but here I feel like all year round there's sales going on. So that actually ended up making sales less appealing to me because, again, it made them feel less scarce. So I no longer thought, okay, if I don't get this now, it probably won't be at such a low price the next time I come into the store, because it probably would still be at that price. Advertising basically sells the idea that you will be happier if you have a certain product in your life. Now, does money buy happiness? Advertising wants you to think that it will. Sometimes it takes advantage of your personal insecurities. Other times it can actually come to create these insecurities in you. I once had this module about the psychology of advertising, and our lecturer told us about the success behind the Listerine ad back in the 1920s, which basically advertised Listerine as a mouthwash that would cure halitosis. Interestingly enough, halitosis is actually a medical term. Well, it's supposedly a medical term which was invented by the Warner Lambert Company. So halitosis is not actually a medical condition. It's completely made up, and the reason for this is that basically the problem was that bad breath was not really a thing back then, and the concept of mouthwash was completely unknown. So it wouldn't be enough to advertise Listerine as a cure for bad breath in order for people to feel urged to buy this product. That wouldn't have made it a popular product, and that's why they came up with the halitosis condition, because this made it seem like there was a cause for alarm, and it played on people's fears of being socially rejected due to their breath. Also, it's worth noticing that there's absolutely no evidence suggesting mouthwashes correct bad breath for any length of time. So besides creating a fear in people that they didn't have before, they're not even right in saying that Listerine will minimize this fear. Also, one of their ads portrays a sad story of a beautiful young woman who they say, and I quote, used to have hundreds of friends and looked forward to a brilliant marriage only a few years earlier, and yet today she's rather a pathetic figure despite her wealth and her charm. And this is because she suffers from halitosis, an unforgivable social fault. They further add that halitosis is a definite daily threat to us all that people themselves are often unable to recognize. Therefore, intelligent people recognize the risk and minimize it by regular use of full-strength Listerine. So they also create the fear that you're dumb if you don't get Listerine because you're not wanting to eliminate bad breath. And I will leave you to be the judge of whether you think this is ethical or not. But yeah, I guess this kind of helps explain why I'm not a big fan of advertising, because knowing these things for me takes the beauty away from all of this. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because as members of a consumerist society, we often have the feeling that we need to buy certain things and that something is missing when they are missing. And I'd say for the past year, maybe 2 years, I've been trying to reduce the amount of things I buy. And even though I have come a long way, I still look at my closet and think, well, I could do with so much less. But after knowing how advertising works, it does get easier to change. For some people, it takes more than just knowing these things for them to be committed to change. And I'm actually thinking of doing a separate episode about how to break habits. Again, I'm aware that this Listerine ad is way outdated now. It was literally a century ago, and that advertising has changed. And you may say that it's more ethical nowadays. But for me, just like with many other things in our society, I don't think it has exactly improved. I think it's simply just not as obvious that it's unethical now. It's kind of camouflaged and you have to give it a little bit more thought. But I still feel there's something intrinsically wrong with the concept behind it. Because it's always about making you feel like you don't have enough. Like there's something you're missing and that this material thing that you're missing is the key to make you happy. And it could actually be that it will make you happy in the short term, but never in the long term. And obviously, please notice that I'm not referring to the few cases when advertising is used for the good. The title of this episode is The Dark Side of Advertising, so I'm mostly focusing on the bad, which is something I tend to do with pretty much everything on my life. Only focus on the bad stuff. But I know there's benefits to it. Advertising can be used to raise awareness for great causes, but most often it's used for the bad. My point is that, in my view, it should really only be used for the good and for causes such as trying to persuade people to get a medical checkup, to have safe sex, to donate money to charities. In this case, I do think it makes sense to make people feel somehow guilty for not doing what the ad tells them to do because, with information comes responsibility. And even though advertising has changed, still word of mouth is the most effective advertising strategy there is, which for me only makes it clearer that there's just no point in having adverts with photoshopped models selling products when you will be more likely to buy a product if it's suggested by someone that you know and trust. There's a lot more to this topic than what I've just described here, and as always, I urge you to go and look out for information on this yourself. But thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.